All right, our next speaker will take the rest of the time is Mark Goloby, and he is running for governor.
Running for governor.
So good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me here. I guess I am running for governor, and I've been very active. Someone kind of asked me. I've been very active, constitutional conservative all my life. All right, but 10 years ago, I got very, very involved. I've been to several state conventions, etc. But started getting involved in this Chapter 313. And Chapter 313 was this corporate welfare program that was a big convoluted mess. And basically, it was you and I subsidizing the property taxes for all these windmills, all right? And so other projects as well. And as I got into it and started peeling back the layers of the onion, it goes, oh, this is economic development. Well, that sounds good, right? We get $65,000 a year jobs. And that's pretty exciting, right? Till you find out that we're giving the company $216,000 per job, right? Well, that's not economic development. That's called a subsidy, right? And that's not how we need to go through there and do economic development. Come in, bring your business. We don't need to be bringing businesses in here who don't want to support our water needs, don't want to support our electric grid, don't want to go through there and be part of getting our highways built, okay? But they sure want the property taxes paid. And we stopped it. You guys stopped it. Grassroots. I went around the state telling everybody what this was. We got a big movement going. We stopped that. We killed it. Unfortunately, then they brought something else back, and we can talk about that also. So if you go to my card there, it says it's good governance, right? So what I'd like to go through and read this. First of all, prayers and thanksgiving be offered everyone for those in authority, that we may lead quiet and tranquil life in devotion and dignity. This is pleasing to God, who wills everyone to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. That's the first letter to Timothy, chapter 2. And when I look at that, when I read that, I thought, well, that to me was what good governance is. Allowing to go through there and have people be able to live in tranquil, peaceful lives and worship God, okay? And what good governance isn't, all right, is not worried about government surpluses. Good governance is worried about your surpluses. Governments don't have surpluses, they have over-collected taxes, right? And so to me, that's one of the things that I look at. And if you look at my plan, one of the things I talk about is a 1% sales tax cut. Hopefully I'll have some time, we'll talk about the governor's announcement of the property tax. But at any rate, a 1% sales tax cut puts money into every Texan's pocket, whether they own property or not. Everybody pays into sales tax, right? When you develop a surplus that way, the money needs to go back to the people who paid it, whether they own a property or not, okay? And when, like I told a little 10-year-old, okay, when you buy that candy bar, it's gonna cost you a little less. That's 1%. That's 1% buy it out of inflation. $16 billion less to the Treasury, $16 billion left in Texas pockets. The Treasury still has $7 billion. That's how overtaxed we are.
Wow.
Yes, wow, okay? And so then when you go through there and you start to say, okay, well, Mark, we have all the property tax issues. All right, well, let's talk about property tax. Number one, property taxes are local. There is no such property tax, statewide property tax. They're all local, so therefore you need to go through there and talk to your local state judges, right? Your commissioner court. I went through, we got 5 Republicans running in Harris County. That's where I'm from, and I told them, okay, I got one of them to finally commit to cutting the property tax rate 2%. Went through the math with them and showed how easy it is, okay? So that's what we need to start doing. That's local. We need to start pushing. And like I said, 2%. Well, that's not going to shake the earth, all right? Okay? But you're starting to tell the government, right? You're starting to tell them the curve has to go this way. It has to go this way. This is unsustainable. How you guys are taxing us. And then you go through there. Then they take our money, all right? They go through there, and then they decide, you know what we need to do with it? We're going to give it to Hollywood millionaires. We're going to go to some of the poorest Texans, right? Take money from them, and then give it to Hollywood millionaires to make movies, right? Boo is right. Okay, so then you go through this. If Thomas Jefferson, and I'm going to be paraphrased, right? When you take money from a person, right, to pay for things they disbelieve and abhor, It's sinful and tyrannical. And that's what our legislature did this time. With that bill, that is sinful and tyrannical. I don't know, but I don't see a whole lot coming out of Hollywood that I believe, okay? And the rest of it is pretty much I abhor. So, no, it's a very sinful thing. The other thing that I look at, okay, and again, we talk about the corporate welfare. I don't want to talk about that. It gets too complicated. Not too complicated, just depressing. Anyway, but the other thing I like to do is good governance, okay? So start talking about good governance says parents and taxpayers should have more direct influence on our public education. Amen. And the guy who sits there and runs it, right? He's appointed, and he's been there for 10 years, right? Now, anybody want to look at the graph of where public education has gone in math, reading, science in the last 10 years, right? This guy was appointed by Abbott. If that's happening, right, and Abbott's letting him stay there, that's Abbott's decision. If he was doing something Abbott didn't like, you can bet he wouldn't be there. So that's a question that you, the voters, need to be asking. Why do we have this guy, right? Number one. Why don't we have an elected Texas Education Commissioner? Can you imagine somebody going around the state campaigning, I want to be your Texas Education Commissioner, and I've got a bunch of filthy books for your schools? That guy doesn't get elected, right? I've got a beautiful drag queen wife who's going to come in and do, right? That guy doesn't get elected, right? When you go through there and they start saying, the parents start saying, what is with this lack of discipline in the schools? And you go through and you start looking at that, it's from our laws, from our legislature, okay? Then this person is going to go back to the legislature and say, hey man, we have got to figure out how to bring back some personal accountability for the children and their parents. So to me, those are things. That's why we need to have an elected Texas Education Commissioner. The other thing I look at is when we talk about good governance, looks at our foster and adoption, all right? We've had good success, okay, on the abortion issue. So more children are coming to term, and that's what the goal, and that's what we wanted to do. But now we need to start looking at how these children are being handled and how the state goes through there and helps these children, especially the ones that are born into dire circumstances. And my thing, when I look at it, so what's success look like? Success would be there would be fewer children needing to be fostered at 11, 12, and 13 years old. Because when they're in the foster system at that age, okay, their trajectory is not good. And then I went through and we found out that some of these kids, okay, age out of foster care without a GED or a high school diploma. As a Texan, I was completely embarrassed. To think that we go through and we take these kids, we have all this, we do all these things, all this rigmarole and everything else, and that poor kid walks out the door, he didn't have a GED or a high school diploma. Well, what do they do? Well, I can tell you most of it's not good, all right? And so you go through there, and what do? Well, the next thing you know, they're out there, and that's why today we have third generation foster care, all right? We have your mom was a foster, grandma was a foster, okay? So we need to go through there. How do you break that cycle? Well, we have to get these children into more foundational homes sooner. One of the things that I look at is have y'all heard of Safe Haven? Safe Haven and baby boxes? Okay. So if you go through there, this is where a person could go to a fire station or certain other facilities and say, here's my child, here, okay, for a young mother, okay? And you go through there, okay, this woman has 60 days to make that decision. Now, I don't know about you, but after 2 months, most women aren't ready to understand what's happening. So we try to go through this legislative session to extend that period of safe haven for that mother and that child, okay, to go to a year. Because, 2 months, the woman may still say, the young girl might say, I can do this, I can take care of them. At 3 months, I can take care of them. At 6 months or 7 months, hey, this thing crawls, right? At 9 months, this thing crawls up and gets on stuff, okay? So how do we go through there and help her out? And how do we go through there? So I've been working with a number of the different foster care. We're looking at being able to help with, again, in that adoption process, and again, helping these people get into more foundational homes sooner so that they can have more productive lives and become productive citizens. I mean, that's the goal. And you go through it and you start looking at these kids at 11, 12, and 13, all right? They're expensive. They're expensive because they're okay, think about your life. You're 12 years old, you've been in 24 different homes, all right? Yeah, you're gonna be a little messed up, all right? I can sit there, I mean, I can see adults who couldn't go through that kind of cycle, all right? So that's something that we need to be looking at. And how do we go through there and help these kids get through this? And how do we help? So a lot of the issues we go through there and talk about are drug related, okay? So you sit there and the mother's on drugs, well then she gets off drugs and we give the baby back. That's wonderful, okay? Except poor mom, okay, more stress, she gets out, whatever, she's back on drugs, she takes the kid away. All right? A little bit later on, okay, the mom gets back on, we give the kid back. The kid goes back. This kid's going back and forth. Every time it's different foster care. The child has to take priority. And they don't need to be living the mother's withdrawal. We want the mom to get back on. We want the mom to get whole. We want the mom to be in good shape to where she could raise that child at some point. But we're not going to sit there and do this for this child. This child's going to have a permanent foundational place to be. And at some point, when they can, we'll reunite mother and child. Maybe it's just through visitations. But that child cannot be living the trauma. Her life is traumatic. We know this, okay? If you've seen anybody who's been addicted, it's a very, very difficult situation, okay? She's fighting the demons or whatever she has, okay? So we don't need this baby fighting the demons with her. The baby's not equipped. The baby shouldn't be forced to do that. So that's, let's see. So again, back to the property taxes again. Go there, take a look. That's all your local stuff there. And the governor sits there today, so let me go through. We will do a little bit of his announcement, okay? Because it's kind of interesting to me, because I thank the governor for borrowing my stuff. I don't know if I appreciate it, I guess I will. I guess that's one thing I can do, right? So let's see. He says, okay, we're going to go through and extend reappraisal. So now you won't get in a reappraisal for every 5 years, okay? Well, that's great, that's great. Right now it's 3 years, okay? But all appraisal districts do it every year, okay, across the state. And then you go through there. And I went to my school district, Tarrant County. Tarrant County went through and they started to do theirs, I think every 3 years or something. So it's starting to happen because we did get, right, elected, where's Jim? We did get elected representation, right? When I campaigned for comptroller in 2022, I went around the state and said, we need to have elected representation. For 40 years, we never had that. All you had was taxing authorities, right? So now, okay, after 40 years, we finally had elected voters, taxpayers, sitting there overlooking the shoulders and looking at these people who are running the appraisal district. So I went to them and said, hey, we need to do this, and showed them some reasons why. But they go back and say, well, the comptroller comes back and does an appraisal for every 2 years. And so your school districts have to be within this range of 95 to 105% of whatever the comptroller decides the properties in Lubbock County should be. In fact, by a school district. So now the appraisal district has to go back there and figure out how to raise, if they're too low, to raise and get back within that, right? So another thing is, well, Governor, what are we going to do about this 2-year comptroller thing? It says it's going to limit the growth to 3.5% or inflation of population, and I say just leave it at 3%. In other words, the city, state, school, whatever, right? Their spending budget can only go up 3%, right? Well, that seems kind of slim. Well, okay. How many families are guaranteed 3% increase in spending? How many people are able to go through and say, oh yeah, well next year we'll get 3% more? Nobody. So I don't know why these government entities think they have the privilege of doing it. Let's see. Then he says, he says that he's going to require. This is right. I know he got this one from me. He's going to require that all tax increases, rate increases, okay, have to be voted on. Now he did a wrinkle. He wanted to updo me, so he went and said it had to be 2/3, okay. But I don't care. I just, simple majority, right, is good enough, right, to go through there, whether that tax increase should go through or not go through, right? So all property tax rate increases need to be voted on. Let's see then, He likes my limit on the tax appraisal increase to 3%. He says 3%, it's 10% now, okay? And the thing is I was around when they were doing all that stuff, and they go through there, when they did it, they said, oh, the most these property values will go up is 10%, all right? It was supposed to be a ceiling. Well, we all know it's become a floor. And so one of the things that I say is instead of the 3%, we go through and say, hey, look, it can only increase the taxable value. I don't care what they put the market value at. We care about what the tax value is, right? The taxable value can only increase by the rate of inflation. So that would go through there, and that would be about 2.5% to 3%. So that way, again, you have more reasonable, and that would apply, and he did it too, right? That would apply to residential and commercial property. So that way you go through there, like now the commercial can go up 20%, it used to be unlimited. So you have commercial property, right, it's gonna go up 20%. That's huge. That's a huge increase. When you're sitting there trying to operate a small business, okay, and you're gonna sit there and your property and your tax values are gonna go up by 20% every year, it gets to be impossible. Let's see, so protect this, I like this one. So he just talks about how to protect taxpayers from being taxed out of their home, okay? Well, I actually have a plan. And the plan is that if you have a homestead exemption, all right, and we can do this, we can do a certain age, okay? At a certain age, you just go through there and say, look, I'm gonna roll this into my estate. You just roll all my time, you'll never have to worry about whether you're gonna have to pay your tax bill or not, okay? And then it'll just roll into your estate and it'll get settled out at a sooner date. And you can do that today, but I'm gonna sit there and say there's no interest, there are no fees being charged by the taxing authority. The individual has the right to say, look, I'm gonna go through there, I'm just gonna roll it in. And I've had people, well, I don't want that to happen to my kids. Well, then you don't have a problem, right? We're talking about the people who need an outlet, right? And worry about that tax bill coming due, not being able to meet it, and being thrown out on the street. And I don't care, somebody that old shouldn't have to worry about that, and it's very easily solved. Let's see, what else has he done for me? And then, this always bothers me. Then he says, okay, we're going to turn the tables on the local taxing authorities, okay? Here's something that we need to be worried about. But if you get rid of your property taxes, you don't have any local. And if all the money's coming out of Austin, right? If you think they control stuff now, if you think they're taking away your local authority now, right? Wait till they have all the purse strings. No, I'm not real keen on concentrating all this money into Austin. To let Austin bureaucrats, all right? I mean, you go through there, and if you go to Austin, you'll find out that they put a job application out, right, for some of these bureaucrat jobs. Well, what market does it go to? Austin, right? I mean, you're going to get Austinites who are going to fill the job application, okay? So one day they're working 6th Street, the next day they're sitting there doing education policy. Who knows? I mean, it's crazy. Then the other one that really, I hate this, because he goes through this several times. And so the words, we're going to put power with the people, all right? I don't know about you, but I do study a lot of history. And every time the people go through there and start saying how they're going to give power to the people, I don't know, those are kind of words that you get from Lenin, right? Stalin, Mao Zedong, right? They were all going to give power to the people. No, you can't give me power, Governor. I've got the power. God gave me the power, right? Yeah. Now you're supposed to be doing what we're asking you to do, and you have a whole constitution that's supposed to be your power, not mine. Is to tell you where to stop, not tell me where to stop. So, and again, then I go through, I look at Texas is the most sovereign of the sovereign states. Texas deserves a governor that understands and will take on the responsibility, all right? I was at a deal, I don't know how many of y'all know Joanne Fleming with Grassroots America. I was at a function with her, she got to speak. She looks out and she says, is the Texas border ready for a post-Trump America? And of course it's not. I can go a long time on that too, right? Our border's not. When you go through there like Jim was saying, this next election is very important, right? If we lose the House or the Senate in 2026, okay, it's going to be Trump woke up this morning, we're going to impeach him. He had a cup of coffee this morning, we're going to impeach him. He went to bed last night, now we're going to impeach him, okay? And that kind of, we don't want to do that. We've lived that. We don't want to do that anymore. And let's see, how much time do I have?
Do what?
How much time?
You got about 7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay, I'll do 2 minutes and then I'll open it up for questions. All right. One of the things, I've been traveling around and I want to see. So Monday I was in Sherman and Arlington and then here. And along the way, one of the things I've been doing is looking at our Texas agriculture. Because one of the things I'm looking at is we need to be Texas needs to be self-sufficient in our food supply. Okay? Now you go back and you remember maybe October of last year, in September, and they go through and they were sitting there wiping out these poultry facilities by the millions. Mm-hmm. Now this is interesting, and I didn't write Trump a letter because we tell him, do you realize on January 20th, no one heard of it. So not only is he keeping world peace, he's curing avian flu. So to me, those are things that we need to be conscious of as a state of Texas. Like I say, we are the most sovereign of the sovereign states. We need to understand what that means. And when you look at the Texas border and the U.S. border, and this is what we need a governor to look at, is the fact that they're the same is a matter of geography, not sovereignty. And you can go to my website, you can see I go all through. Ken Cuccinelli goes through everything, talks about the constitutional power a governor has, right? And so he could just sit there and say, okay, great. U.S. government, you don't want to protect your border. That's fine. Don't. I'm going to protect the Texas border. I'm going to protect the Texas border for the livelihoods, and the property, right, of my citizens of Texas that voted me here to be here. And that's how you go through there. And again, you can look at my website, Ken Cuccinelli. He's a complete constitutional authority, right? So he goes through and tells us all that within the Article 10 and everything else about how a governor can do everything he needs to protect the lives, the livelihoods, and the private property of his citizens. So with that, I will open it up for questions, so hopefully you have a few.
How would you protect the border?
How would you protect the border? Well, there are already people going through there. Hey, you just start deputizing people, right? You bring in, instead of sitting there going, oh, I'm going to go send our Texas National Guard to Chicago to help out in Chicago, all right? Well, why didn't a year ago or 2 years ago? Why were you sitting there busting all these people to New York so they can go vote for a communist? Because in New York, you can vote. We could have gone and voted. Maybe we should have, right? So, I mean, that's how you do it. You go through there and you look at the resources you have, and again, you got the whole DPS, you got the whole Texas Rangers, you turn around and say, hey, look, citizens, I need to deputize people. Give them the training, give them the tools to be able to go through there. There's a lot of vets that were already down there doing stuff. So to me, that's how you could go through and enforce and make sure that, like again, you don't want to close it, we'll close ours. Any other thoughts, suggestions, ideas? Sure.
Changing education. We don't have enough time.
What would I change in education? Well, to me, it'd be more of what will you change in education, because you're going to have an elected education commissioner. He's not going to be coming to me. I'm not going to be telling him what to do. You are, all right? And so to me, one of the things we need to do, you see all this stuff with these teachers and inappropriate relationships, and I've done this. I've done this to my school board. I did this to the Texas Senate. And I looked at them and I walked in and I said, you have all these teachers, these inappropriate relationships, okay? Right down the hall in your very school library are books detailing these inappropriate relationships, okay? In detail, they're gross. I mean, this stuff it's vulgar. I mean, you can't, it's horrible. But at any rate, okay? So you go through there and you say, so the kid, 11, 12, 13, 14, they're going through all the things they go through. They're trying to figure out who they are, what they are, and all those kind of things, right? Okay? And then they just read this filthy book, right? And then some weird, maladjusted adult approaches them. They don't know. Says, hey, back off and leave me alone. They just read a book and said, oh, well, maybe you should. This is a nice guy, nice gal, whatever, okay? So to me, that's the kind of stuff. So to me, it's got to be cleaned up. The discipline's a big, big problem. When I talk to the teachers, their biggest frustration is they cannot discipline the kids. I've heard them the way they go through it. Some kids start throwing chairs around. They get the other kids out and let the kids throw those chairs around. No, that is not. No, you can't have that. And I've done a little bit of Bible teaching, you know, with youth, okay, especially in the teenage. And one of the things is one kid can disrupt the whole class. One kid, one mystery little kid, okay, can keep all the other kids from learning. And that's a shame. And we should not allow that. And again, those are laws by the Texas legislature that limits what they can do and how they can punish these kids. And more importantly, the parents need to be brought to term as well. They need to be brought in there and say, if you don't discipline your child, you're going to have to take care of them all day long. Well, I have daycare. Well, then you better figure out how to tell that boy to behave or that girl to behave in the classroom.
My daughter is an administrator at a facility in Levelland, what do you call it? Where they live there, CPS and.
Oh, okay, right.
Okay, and, she was in Houston at Harmony, and the teachers are trained to, what does she call it? Take down a student. It takes 4 administrators, 4 teachers, to take down a 15-year-old boy who's getting ready to raise Cain. And you can't get the parents to do anything about it, and so you just call the police, and the police pick them up.
Well,
If the parents aren't gonna be present,
no, you're right. I mean, you're absolutely right. That's like I say.
give parents the authority, but let's also, those people that, the teachers need some help.
Oh, no, I know, exactly. No, they, like I said, they need to have tools, all right? And they need to be able to go through there, and like you said, it takes them to take down some of these kids. But that is Harmony is a charter school,
I know.
right? So they have a little bit more leeway to.
They do, and that's why she liked it there.
Exactly.
Because
So
she
think
could
about
absorb them and they could slam them on the ground.
Now going to public school, they don't even have that
No,
ability.
you can't do that. You
Yeah.
have to move the kids out of the classroom.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a mess.
So
Yeah.
I think I read that Abbott said that he was gonna tariff New Yorkers moving to Texas.
Oh,
Is that right?
Yeah, I like that because that opened up some good windows for me to sit there and say, yeah, he's going to sit there and do a tariff against New Yorkers. He didn't do anything about all the people coming across our own border down here. But oh yeah, he's going to get tough on those people from New York.
Which leads into my next question. How do we keep Texas red?
True Texas Project, right? All these organizations. I just came today. I spent time yesterday with Young Americans for Liberty. That's at the college. Young Conservative of Texas. All right. And so one of the things I have, the Cherry Tree Republicans is another group that I'm involved in. We built a whole web page so that a kid can go to that website, go down to their college, and find, hey man, there's a chapter of the Young Conservative, you got and we built it. It started off just kind of a Texas little centric thing, but we got Young Women for America or something like that.
Get them young.
Well, you're right, and they have college. So we're all over the place. We're in Clemson. We've got some out in California. So I mean, and the idea is that these young kids, when they're going off to college, they can either go find a sport group, okay? I mean, that's a big part of, right, is having a common group, okay? Or they can go down there and they can, open up a chapter. But they don't have to be going off to school thinking, I'm going to go to this liberal school. I'll put my conservatism, down here for a while. That doesn't work. It doesn't work for our conservative ideas, because they put it down, sometimes they never pick it up again, okay? So we need to go through there and help them find kids. So that's one way we start cultivating in the younger children, okay? Take advantage of things like LifeWise, okay? Well, I'm sure preaches some pretty conservative ideals, I'm gonna hope. And anyway, is that it? Okay, any more questions? Well, Mark Goloby, right? Make Texas Texas again. Good governance now today. I got some handouts here, and take a look. And yeah, I'll be on the campaign trail and trying to keep see what we can do to change a few other things since we got the elected representation, right? Maybe we'll get a tax cut.
Thank you, Mark.